Would you have sex with an alien?
Well, what is he or she?
No, I don't know.
Hi, and welcome to TheNeckbeardNation, where we talk about dirty neckbeard atheist stuff, because we're cool like that. I'm Buck, this is Matt. I've got my goblet of pop, and Matt has an extra special message today about his hat of the day.
Yeah. Just want to let you guys know this is a very special hat. It allows me to receive transmissions from extraterrestrials through quantum waves. And it's linked up to these glasses, which provide me a heads-up display. So I might be receiving information. We'll see what happens. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's usually at nighttime when I'm in sleep paralysis when they talk to me, but I don't know. Maybe it'll happen during the day.
Yeah. I just worry because we might be angering the aliens today by talking about them, letting people know.
They said it's cool.
Okay.
It's all right.
All right.
I'm cool then.
As long as you're on good terms with the aliens, That's good. It's good to hear.
I mean, that kind of leads into our first point, is that we may potentially be aliens ourselves.
Yes.
So we're all, related.
So we're going to start the show. We're going to do it in a bit of a chronology format with panspermia. The idea that life came from outer space and populated the Earth. There are, of course, people who have ideas of a directed panspermia, where they're claiming some other life, said, ooh, that looks like a place where I want to start life for some reason, and just throw it down there. I think Scientology has a bit of that in it.
Yeah, Xenu and the...
Yeah. But we're less concerned with those kinds of people, and more concerned with the science of it. Yeah. The panspermia is quite possible, and a lot of very respected scientists think that a lot of the building blocks of life did come from space after the Earth was formed. I want to make a point of that is, right, for somebody who doesn't know a lot about it, like, say, a Christian who doesn't follow science, for example. I'm not saying not, but we're not saying that living organisms really made it through space, which extremophiles might be able to live in the vacuum of space, but it's more of like the building blocks, right? Yes.
Would it be like what, amino acids or?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Things like that, nucleic acids, but not like DNA, like simple structures. And it is hypothesized that during the early history of the Earth, perhaps even after life had gotten started a bit, they could have been flung out into space by impacts with the planet and circled about a bit.
When we're talking about our own planet.
Yes.
So there's the thought that even life could have started here, an impact could have thrown life out into outer space and then came back to our own planet.
Right.
And I've also heard that it could have even been thrown to Mars. There's theories or hypotheses that it went to Mars and then somehow came back here in another impact, and it's just, it's pretty cool to think about. Definitely.
Yeah, and of course we are all made of star stuff in the end, from the fusion of atoms inside stars come these higher level elements, and of course that leads to all of the different structures we're made of. And certainly it's an interesting thing to think about. Certainly it doesn't answer the abiogenesis questions, because then there's the question of where that come from, yada. And what happens after that, things like that. But it is certainly the beginning of the journey into life out there, in the solar system, the universe, etc. And I find that it's an interesting argument as well, because it sort of solidifies the idea that life is probable.
Yeah.
Because, if it can form in space and this sort of coast across the cosmos to other parts of the universe, then certainly anywhere out there could be all sorts of aliens, and I think something like that's a pretty powerful message.
Yep.
But I am getting slightly ahead of myself here.
Well, I think we laid the framework on it. This is kind of the beginning, and from there, the possibilities are almost endless.
Right. Yes. As we learned when preparing for the episode, there are lots of possibilities. Yeah. So I'm going to go into the next step in our chronology. Aliens after humans came around, because alien dinosaur interaction would be interesting, but not really a part of what we're doing.
They're not around to tell us about it.
Right. So we start in ancient times with everyone's favorite series, Ancient Aliens.
Yeah.
And Matt had an interesting interview on that subject this week.
Yeah, I just like a lot of people, I had like a small understanding of the shows. I'd seen some. I didn't really dive too much into it, but I have a close relative who actually has a lot of the books by like Eric von Daniken and Charity of the Gods, and has looked into it a lot. And so I figured I'd ask them a little bit on it and talk with them, get some how they feel about it. And it's pretty. I want to make another note that in doing the research for these videos, I came across I didn't mention this earlier, but I came across a video when I was researching for Jewish atheists. There's a Jewish atheist video, and one of the guys said that he came to his atheism through the ancient aliens because it gave him another viewpoint that showed that it could have been something other than gods that gave way to our existence. But anyways, I'll get back on subject. So I did this interview, and it was really pretty cool to see that not all ancient alien people are black and white. There is a middle ground for some of them where they say, yeah, I'm not sure if it's true, but it's cool to think about, and it's a possibility. It led into arguments where I made the argument that if you can plug aliens into the equation, can you plug anything else in the place of aliens? And if you can put anything else in the place of aliens in that argument, then we can't say for sure what it is. Mm-hmm. There's no real point in putting aliens in there. It's like I think a lot of the arguments started with a lot of the mythology around it started with people's wonder of the night sky and what's out there, and the sun and the moon, and they personified them as gods, and in all different ways. And that in modern times, looking back at that history and mythology, can be interpreted as many different things, including aliens. I also use the argument that imagine 5,000 years from now. I use the argument of like an example of the pyramids. Like people say, the pyramids, they built these things for this special purpose. Imagine 5,000 years from now, people look back at us and say, why did we build skyscrapers when we could have just worked from home? Yeah. We had internet. We had all these ways to work from home. Why did we go to these skyscrapers? It's like, it had a purpose at the time, and you can attribute anything you want to it looking back at it, but it is what it was at the time. I'm kind of getting off here, but
yeah. It's sort of aliens of the gaps.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. It's like, I can't explain this thing, so aliens. But not everybody in the ancient aliens things is that hard-lined, I found. Mm-hmm. And I think it was pretty cool, because you always personify the other side as this extremist, we got to try not to do that. So, let me think about that. Some of the examples were that that the ancient humans weren't capable of doing these things. Like, they needed some advanced technology to move stones or create such precision measurements. And I feel like that's pretty flawed. And I noticed in a lot of the episodes, it was direct. I mean, it was playing on people's ignorance, basically. it was really sad to see a lot of the stuff they stated in the episodes. And I think that's where a lot of the uproar comes from our side, is that it seems like they're almost taking advantage of people with some of the things they say. And real quick, I guess I'll sum it up. My feeling is ancient people were smarter than we give them credit for. They had a lot of time on their hands. They potentially had the impetus of the directions of a perceived God to tell them to do these things. And these were at the times where agriculture were providing them with luxuries in terms of time, where they didn't have to go out and hunt for their food. So it's not that far-fetched to think that somebody would devote their life to building something and honing a craft and making something really amazing that looks like, it took a great technology to do, I guess.
Right. So. And compare it to how far-fetched it is that some intelligent species would have traveled across the cosmos and got in here and they're like, hey, people of ancient Egypt, what if we took a lot of these rocks you have lying around and built them into sort of this pyramid shape, and then when your pharaoh dies, you can take his brain out with a spoon or whatever that hook thing is, and you can put him in there as his tomb. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, we talked about this earlier, that the absurdity that, and I used a Kardashev scale, and if you're not sure, look it up. It's a scale on how technologically advanced a civilization is and how they would harness energy. So basically, to be able to travel great distances through space, you as far as we know, you pretty much have to bend space and time to create any type of time
faster than light
travel.
Yes.
So to do that, you have to harness the energy of, at least harness the entire energy of suns, multiple suns, maybe even whole solar systems or universes to create that amount of energy. Mm-hmm. And to think that aliens got to the point where they could create that amount of energy just to come here and stack a bunch of rocks into a pile for us is pretty absurd. But the interview I did countered that with they could have already been in our solar system. It might not have been from outside our solar system. And my counter to that is, then they're not as advanced as we thought they were, because we can already conceivably travel to Mars and to a lot of places within our solar system and even bring people there. And so if that was my initial argument.
And we can see Mars.
Yeah.
It's like, if there was something there, we might know about it.
Yeah. That's what you brought up earlier, is there's not very many habitable places and there's no signs. And I also discussed this in my talkings with my ancient alien friend, in that we believe we would see signs of it, or there would be habitable planets or moons, which we haven't found. But it also, their argument, which I think is pretty false, was that it could be like Planet X or a planet we haven't found yet, which I don't know about that. But
yeah, no, it's you go down the rabbit hole with people like that, and they say, well, if it's that argument's bunk, then I've got this one to try, and then they'll just keep going until you get tired of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes for a lot of people, though, you know.
No, absolutely, but it's sort of this realm of the people who are either conspiracy or just locked up into a method of belief, like theists often are, where you can get to a place where they just can't be budged.
Yeah.
And certainly catering to that element is fairly easy for these people in the program to do. Because you just have to keep saying the same thing over and over. People start buying it, that sort of thing. So that is an interesting part of the topic of aliens, these ancient alien people. But for the most part, what you hear is, shiny saucer flying in the sky sort of things. Yeah. And certainly those concepts are fairly young in terms of our civilization, but somewhat newer in terms of, say, compared to other big societal ideas. So, about 150 years ago, you start getting science fiction with these ideas about there might be something out there, or there could be, whatever out in space. And, you go from there. There's a few books that come out slowly about what it would be like. You were mentioning
Moon is made of cheese.
Yeah.
All that. It was a really... I think what we were discussing was it wasn't as pinned down that back when it first... The modern aliens, when it first started coming about, it wasn't as pinned down as it is now, as to what our media described them as. It was just a lot of speculation, and it kind of tied into the ancient thing. It's like we've always been looking to the sky and wondering what was out there. So that led to the beginnings of kind of sci-fi and led into, little green men with antennas. I mean, they do have antennas. That's why my helmet has antennas. Of course. And then it all kind of changed with around the time of Roswell, I think.
Yes.
Is my understanding.
Yeah.
In which the media kind of switched over to these gray aliens with big eyes, and now that's the alien that everybody thinks of today.
Yeah, and I think of the flying saucer and the government conspiracies and all that kind of stuff, where people who are in that sect of society, anyways, where they're going to believe kind of weird things, are driven into that culture. And you get into things like where people say they're abducted, and you get into things where people are making their lives based on this sort of thing. It is almost at a religious level for some people. So you get started with that culture. In the 50s, you have sort of that B-movie, sci-fi kind of stuff. Moves into...
Theremin.
Yeah.
Oh, man, those are cool. That instrument was like... Woo, 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 woo.
Yep. Plan 9 from outer space. And
Santa versus the Martians. Is that... Anyways.
Yeah, and so then you get into more serious sci-fi after that. Things like Star Trek come about, and you sort of look into that sort of the future aspect of it. Yeah. And I think from there, when we have a sort of more sophisticated sort of take on aliens in the future and some of that, you get into the smarter arguments where people are using SETI, the large Arecibo receiver, to look for these aliens, getting mathematicians to come up with statistical models to see if they're probable out there. You get biologists looking into evolutionary arguments to show what they would be made of, things like that. And, it's certainly taken on a much more sophisticated aspect for a lot of people. But, of course, there are still, yokels with cameras saying they're abducted.
Yeah. It's pretty cool to see the two sides, the people really trying to find the aliens and the speculation. And, I love sci-fi, as you mentioned. You kind of hinted on sci-fi a little bit, and it's really cool that it kind of all started. I feel like it started with all those stories of speculation and wondering, but it branches off into the crazy pseudo science, whatever it is, and then the real stuff. And I think we should get into the real searches a little bit more. And you mentioned SETI. Mm-hmm. I mentioned earlier that I did the SETI at home, or I think it was tied to this other thing called folding at home. I'm not sure if that's part of SETI, but where you can volunteer your computer's time to basically translate or go through these SETI recordings of outer space transmissions or whatever. Of basically white noise is what it is for most of the time. But it's pretty cool to be involved in something like that. And as I was doing it, I was always wondering, like, what if this one I'm decoding is the one that has the message? Like, would I be famous? Like, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't even mention me, but
yeah,
it's like, would they even know that my computer did it? But anyways, I think we're timer's going off. But real quick, I wanted to throw a curveball in. We didn't talk about this. Would you have sex with an alien?
Well, what is he or she?
No, I don't know. I mean,
what is
that's your preference.
What does it look like?
Okay, so put it this way: what would
I'm not having sex with a pile of sludge.
Why not, man? It might be great.
It could be, but then we have piles of sludge, and I'm not fucking them.
Oh, okay, you're right.
So,
yeah, I just thought of that before. I mean, the whole like Kirk. Our green woman thing, yep.
Our friend Kirk here.
Captain Kirk and the green women. I mean, I'd definitely hook up with a green woman. But where do you draw the line, you know?
Well, as long as he's fairly woman-like, a little green is okay.
Yeah.
You know, once you start getting into some of, like, I don't want to do a tribble. Yeah. Like, that's a little too much like a puff dog to me.
Yeah. What? Yeah. All right. So that's something for you guys to think about. You know, we'll leave you with that.
Yes. So for Matt, I'm Buck. I want to thank all of the new people who are following us on Twitter, and all you guys who are starting to catch on YouTube. And it looks like we're getting a little bit of a burgeoning fan base, and I want to thank all you out there. And for me, that's a good night.
Yeah, guys, thank you very much. We've been working hard to try to promote it, and any input you guys have, just contact us. The links are down below to ways to contact us, and any criticism, if you want to just make fun of us, go ahead. You know, that's welcome too. Thank you, guys.
Adios.